Yeah, that's a fire spot. Yeah, I was in. Well, the city, oh, nice. So you kind of went back and forth, would you stay up sitting out there? It's just never one, it started early. What was, which hotel? I was at the W. Oh, W.
I would like to call to order the Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, December 5th, 2023. Are there any speakers for topics for closed session?
There are no speakers.
All right, seeing none, we will convene to closed session. session of the Board of Education meetings. The URL for YouTube live streaming may be found on the NHUSD Board of Education webpage. While the boardroom is undergoing renovation, the board will continue to record and stream the board meeting, but will be using different equipment than it normally uses. If you are joining us via Zoom webinar and would like to provide public comment for this meeting, you may do so by utilizing the raise your hand option in Zoom or by calling in, or if you're calling in by phone, please press *9 and wait to be called upon. Community members may still provide public comments to the board prior to each meeting via our email address, publiccomment@nhusd.k12.ca.us. There was one comment provided to the board prior to tonight's meeting via the public comment email address. I would like to remind the public that the board will not be responding to questions posed by those making public comments tonight. Relative to closed session items 3.1 through 3.3, there was no action taken by the board in closed session. I will now hand the meeting over to Vice President Kumar, who will preside over item.
Thank you, President Nishihiro. Will the audience please rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty for all. Thank you. I have a roll call, please.
Salim.
Here.
Perez. Here. Hernandez.
Here.
Buffet.
Here.
Gonzalez.
Here.
Kumar.
Here.
Nishihiro.
Here.
May I have a motion and second to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Discussion? Back to you, President.
May I have volunteer to read the land acknowledgement? Okay. Trustee Buffet.
We want to open up this meeting by acknowledging with respect and love that the land we are on today is the traditional ancestral homeland of the Ohlone Chochenyo First People. We recognize and thank the Ohlone people as the original stewards of this land. Indigenous people must not be spoken about in past contexts as if they left on their own accord, when the real causes were white supremacy, manifest destiny, and U.S. colonization. By recognizing we stand on the occupied indigenous territory of Ohlone people, we recommit ourselves to listen to Native leadership and stand in solidarity with people struggling against systems of oppression throughout the world, past and present.
Thank you. Moving on to 6.1, our annual organization meeting and action. Item 6.1, may I have a motion and a second to suspend governing board policies 9100 and 9121? So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to 6.2. At this time, we will begin the annual organization meeting for our first order of business is to elect a new board president. Are there any nominations? Vice President Kumar.
I would like to nominate Trustee Gonzalez to be our president.
Okay. Great. Any other nominations? All right. May I have a motion and a second to affirm Michael Gonzalez as board president?
I second.
All those discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Congratulations.
As part of that process, President Nishihiro, former President Nishihiro, we have a little certificate for you, and being a board president is not, the board president gets lots of phone calls from me. There's lots of time spent behind the scenes trying to get agendas and things together. So thank you very much. We appreciate it. We, the plaque we have for you, it did not meet its delivery deadline.
Okay.
So
All right.
anyway,
All right.
thank you for your service.
All right. Thank you. And we are in good hands. President Gonzalez.
I'd like to offer a point of personal privilege, and you would like to say some words. So I got some big shoes to fill.
Of course.
Would you like to say anything?
Oh, yeah. It's been a pleasure serving as the president. It's not always an easy job because you have to kind of pay attention to the meeting And also keep the meeting going at the same time. So now I get to actually relax and kind of be a better participant. So I appreciated the time and the opportunity.
I just want to mention to the audience, sorry, I'm losing my voice. My son was sick. And I'm getting over what he got, and I have parent conference this week, and I was teaching all day, so I apologize if my voice goes out. Whoever is vice president, they can carry on with the meeting. So let's go ahead and open up with our vice president. Are there any nominations for vice president?
I'd like to nominate Vice President Kumar as vice president.
Okay. Do you accept?
Yes.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Okay, is there a second?
I'd like to second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, congratulations. Are there any nominations? Are there any nominations for board clerk?
I'd like to nominate trustee Rafi as clerk.
Thank you.
Is there any other nominations? Okay, is there a do we have a second?
I'd like to second that.
Discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, congratulations. Right, fellow board trustees, if you can look to your, we're gonna move on to the, next item, which is, 6.3 appointment. I'm sorry, yeah, this is, 6.3, appointment of the superintendent for the secretary of the board. Okay, so at this time, we'll review and make appointments. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, is there a motion? To make our superintendent the secretary?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in discussion on this? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, congratulations. Okay, so I kind of like how we did it last year. This is for our standing committees. So we're gonna review and make appointments to standing committees and board representative to other agencies. So we're just gonna go down the list like last time. I like how we organized it last year with like seniority. We go ahead and check who's on what, and if they are not happy there, they can move on to another. So our first standing committee is the Alameda County Board, School Board Associations. She is no longer on our board. It was trustee Schwinn Mallory. So is there anybody else would like to be on that?
I'll take that. Yes.
Okay, is there anybody else interested? Okay, so we're gonna need an alternate also to be on there. Is there?
I can be the alternate.
Okay. Let's see, Hernandez. And then we're gonna ratify after we're done with the list here, so. Okay, next one was the Board of Education City Council Subcommittee. This is the automatic one. It's the board president and the board clerk. Will continue. It's a 1-year term, so this is not up for debate. Okay. And then the next one is the California Interscholastic Federal North Coast Section. Lance.
I don't mind staying on it.
Okay. Trustee Missionary is gonna continue, okay. And this is, the next one is the Mission Valley Regional Occupational Program Board.
I'll continue.
Okay, you're gonna continue. Okay. And trustee Missionary, you're gonna,
Yep, I can
Also-
continue as
alternate.
as alternate, yeah.
okay. Next one, New Haven Communication and Advocacy Committee. Trustee Kumar. And trustee Missionary.
Sure.
Okay. All right, the next one, which, this was the former budget committee, it's the New Haven Finance, Technology and Facilities Committee, committee. And so there's a vacancy on there. I'm still interested on being on that, so I would like to continue. Is there anybody else who's interested?
I'm interested in joining the committee.
Trustee Hernandez, want to be on that? All right, so the policy committee. I could continue if there's somebody who would like to persuade me to be on the replacement for the policy committee. I'm open to that. But I'll continue if nobody else wants to, and we definitely need another person for former trustee Schwinn Mallory. So is there anybody interested? Pretty exciting committee, you know. Looking at policies. You can do it. Please, trustee Rafael got on this? Oh, come on. Okay, I'm sorry. And then we also need an alternate though, I'm sorry. Trustee Rafael, did you want to continue as an
I can
alternate?
continue.
And then the New Haven Schools Foundation, trustee Kumar, do you want to continue? And an alternate, trustee Rafael, did you want to? Yeah, all right, and now for the SELPA board policy. Trustee Rafael, did you?
Yeah, I'll continue.
You can continue, okay. And trustee Nishera, did you want to be an alternate?
Sure.
Fine. All right, last committee here is the Unicity Youth Violence Prevention Advocacy Committee.
I'm interested in that.
Okay.
Is that Vanessa?
Student, something,
Yeah. Okay, I think we still need a board.
we still need, yeah, we need a board member on there.
I'm interested in it if no one else.
Okay, trustee Hernandez. All right, so that concludes all of the committees. Does anybody need, hopefully we wrote those down. Do you need a recap on who's on what? You want us to?
Okay, for the School Board Association, trustee Rafael and trustee Hernandez as the alternate. The subcommittee we know with the city is President Gonzalez and trustee Rafael. CIF, trustee Gara. Mission Valley RLP, trustee Rafael, alternate trustee Gara. Communication Advocacy, trustee Kumar and trustee Nishihara. Finance, the FTFC, Finance Technology Facilities Committee, President Gonzalez and trustee Hernandez. The Policy Committee, President Gonzalez and Clerk Cafe. The Schools Foundation, Vice President Kumar and alternative Clerk Cafe. The SELPA, Clerk Rafael, and alternate is trustee Nishihara. The Youth Violence Prevention Advisory Committee, trustee Hernandez, and student member Sami. So if you move all of that, and move in a second, you can move all of those.
Okay, may I get a motion and a second to approve the appointments to standing committees and board representatives to other agencies?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? All right. Moving on. Okay. Okay, we're gonna move on to, this is, item 6.5, date and time of regular board meetings. Okay, so I would like to confirm that the calendar designated the dates and times of regular board meetings of the 2023-2024 school year adopted at the regular board meeting on April 18th, 2023, and revised by the board at the regular board meeting on May 2nd, 2023, will remain in effect. Can we all get a nod to confirm that? So I would also like to confirm the 5:30 PM as a start time of closed session and 6:30 as a start time for open session. Then may I have a motion and a second to confirm and approve the calendar of regular board meetings for the 2023-24 school year?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on. Okay, this is item 6.6. This is a approval of mid-year addition and changes to the signature card. May I have a motion and a second for the signature card?
Clarification for the motion, please. Can you clarify the motion, please?
Yes, this is for the now that we have new officers, we need our I'm sorry. Go back.
I can clarify.
Yes, could you
Yes,
clarify?
so this is a motion to, with a new board member, we have to file with the county who it is that has the authority to sign on behalf of the board. So since we have trustee Schwinn Mallory no longer with us, and we have trustee Hernandez joining us, we have to change that with the county. So if the board, the motion would be to approve the changes to the attached signature card.
Okay, then I move to approve the mid-year addition and changes to the signature card.
Second.
Great discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now we are on the public comment. Okay, this 7.1 procedures. It looks like we have a full house here, and that's why a lot of us standing room only. This is why a lot of us are here. So,
Yeah, I think you agree to the right down the right, just that first part.
okay. All right, comments sent prior to the board meeting. Sorry, no,
I'm sorry. You can go, you have the executive content point there. There you go.
okay, just that, okay. Are there any blue cards on topics that are not on the agenda?
We have one blue card for a topic not on the agenda. That's Michael Gardner speaking about speech therapists in schools and psychologists.
Okay, you have 2 minutes to speak.
All right. Hey, everybody, I say this at every department meeting, every staff meeting, every NHTA meeting, and I say it every meeting here, and I'm going to say it again. The public feedback has been consistent for years. Social and emotional learning is a high priority for this district. There have been attempts to meet these needs through professional development, and though I'm not against this, I think it's missing the important part. Teachers, however thoughtful, sensitive, or emotionally intelligent, are not professionals in supporting people with social and emotional needs. We currently do have trained professionals at our schools, school psychologists and speech therapists. They have advanced education to support these needs. Unfortunately, due to their caseload size, they spend almost all of their time in IEP meetings, doing testing, sharing, and writing reports. This is a missed opportunity. It's a low-cost, high-impact way to meet the community demanded need to lower the caseload size of school psychologists and speech therapists. This is vastly more cost-effective than using the finite resources of time and money to retain teachers who are specialists in curriculum, assessment, and classroom management to be part-time social support networks. Thank you. You'll hear that again.
All right. Are there any speakers via Zoom that wish to address the board on topics that are not on the agenda? Please raise your hand and I will call on everyone one at a time. Is there anybody? One person?
There's one speaker,
Not on the agenda.
not on the agenda. Where's the one?
Please keep your comments to 2 minutes. Speakers that go over the 2 minutes will be muted.
Are you ready for me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Lisa Duncanson. I teach science at Easton Elementary School, and this is my 25th year in New Haven. And I wanted to send a statement of my very strong support for the NHTA bargaining team. This is a very emotional journey for us to be on right now as NHTA members. This is the first time I've addressed this body since our strike. And it was a very traumatizing event for us. And I keep hearing the phrase go through my head, forged in fire. I remember crying every morning as I approached the picket line. It was very, very hard. But in the end, what I learned is that we are a strong community and we are willing to do whatever it takes to get our students what they deserve. And I think it's vitally important, especially this contract cycle, that we get a settlement before the summer. I think it would send a very negative message to our community if we have to have things drag on. I think that is vitally important. And at the top of the things that I think we need to consider for the needs of our students, just like Mr. Gardner just addressed, are caseloads and class sizes. Like I said, I started in this district 25 years ago. I remember roughly 15 years ago talking to a speech teacher at Guy Emanuel Elementary when her caseload was more than doubled. Since then, they've more than tripled what she had to deal with in that time. The caseloads are simply outrageous. And even class sizes are the same. If we want to have classes that address our student needs and attract, oh, sorry, thank you for your time.
All right, and we're gonna go. We're gonna go ahead and. Is that, we're gonna move?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll move down.
These are, we're hearing from visitors, topics that are on the agenda. This is 8.1. So are there any blue cards on topics that are on the agenda?
Yes, we have 4 blue cards for this and then 1 for the public hearing. First speaker is Greg Snelling on the first interim budget.
Hi, evening board. Thank you for your time. I'm gonna keep this short and sweet because I timed it at 66 seconds. My name is Greg Snelling. It's my 27th year at Alvarado Elementary School. I am the co-chair of the New Haven Teachers Association bargaining team. Not since the race to the top federal grant during the Obama administration has New Haven been so financially secure. And I'm here to share some really good news. New Haven is even better off than the first interim budget report states. First interim budget reports projects the unrestricted ending balance at the end of the year to be $29 million. Since 2015 and 2016, The first interim budget has under projected unrestricted ending balance reserves by millions of dollars. 4.6, 3.1, 3.7, 6.8, 6.4, 6.1, 5.7, and $5.6 million. Over the last 5 years, the ending unrestricted reserve has been higher by an average of $6 million. This district is in strong financial position to come to a contract settlement that appropriately compensates certificated staff, while also beginning the investment in smaller class sizes and caseloads for the children that the children of the New Haven community deserve. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next speaker is Leah Morris.
Hi, I stand before you today as your chosen teacher of the year, as well as in my 22nd year here in the district. I beg you and plead with you to make sure that all the conversations between our NHTA board and your board are collaborative, that this becomes a win-win negotiation for our community, our students, and the staff. I really want you to look towards lowering class sizes. And what's brought before you is elementary schools are teachers of all things, and our high school teachers have specific subject matter. At this point, all of us are counselors. We're nurses. We're many, many things to the students. So I'm hoping that you will lower class sizes so that we can be more impactful on all the social emotional needs that our children are bringing towards us, as well as making sure that all of our student achievement is as high as each individual student can achieve. At the same time, I want you to also consider that for many of us, our Kaiser has gone up. I believe it's 11% next year, to keep in mind that we all have our rent to pay as well. So I really appreciate the time and appreciate all that you do, and hope that we can work together to make sure that next year is not stressful, that a contract's already in place, that all of the teachers can be focusing only on their children and the needs of our students and what we need to have done, that the board can focus on other things versus perhaps any other things like listening or trying to come for each meeting or work to rule or any of those negative things that have an impact that won't be positive for our community and our students. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker. Next up is George Zuber.
Good evening, board, Dr. Thompson. I'm here as a teacher at James Logan High School. I want to talk about our bargaining cycle that's coming up. And many teachers are going to talk about different things that they would like, class size reduction, et cetera, salaries. My only request is that other teachers don't pay for that. We'd like to keep our salaries within the inflation rate, which in the last 4 years that has been done. So we thank you, board and district, for keeping our salaries up with inflation for the last 4 years. But moving forward, obviously it's based on projections. But if we are going to reduce class sizes, or we are going to offer other options, it should not be teachers' salaries that pay for that, or a cut in teachers' salaries to pay for that. So that's my hope, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Next up is Stephanie Brill.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Brill, and I'm a proud teacher of almost 3 years at the adult school. I'm here to urge the district to negotiate a fair contract that will that reflects the importance of the adult school in our community, particularly for immigrants, many of whom are parents of district children. Our requests are reasonable and seek to rectify a great historical disparity in the level of adult school teachers in the district. Specifically, we are asking for education as well as past experience to be included in our salary schedule, standard for other district teachers, stipends that other teachers receive for educational degrees, 1-year guaranteed employment barring appropriate procedure for removals, seniority, and starting pay commensurate with our closest neighboring adult schools, Hayward and Fremont. We are also asking for a roster cap of 50 students per class and paid prep time. We need these improvements in order to attract and retain the dedicated and quality teachers on whom our students rely. Thank you.
Okay, and finally, Mr. Gard, you are up to talk about bargaining.
I always find a way to talk twice. Good evening, board members. As we're entering bargaining, I ask you again, I say again, thank you and my condolences. You've worked hard to earn the right to have the responsibility for what must seem like an impossibly huge amount of money for an unimaginably important public duty to prepare the next generation for career, college, and life. There's an old proverb about politics, though it may be cynical, I found it to be undeniably true. Every political decision makes a temporary ally and a permanent enemy. Thank you for what you're doing and my condolences for what you're going into. I served as NHTA's political activity chair in 2 elections, and though I'm far from an expert, I think I can offer some constructive advice. Be very, very careful, but still know that you are the ones making the decisions. You must ask hard questions, listen critically, and ultimately take responsibility for the fact that you 5 are making the decision of how these negotiations will be managed. The public is trusting you to make decisions which will have generational consequences. So again, and for the last time tonight, thank you and my condolences.
Okay, we're gonna move on to labor notice. This is the. Yeah, we're gonna move on to labor notes from our collective bargaining presidents, union presidents. Hold on a second. To revise, yeah. Okay, our first, this is 9.1, this is our CSEA president here? No, okay, so we'll go on to our NHTA president, Mr. Joe Angeles.
Good evening and congratulations, President Gonzalez, on your appointment as president, Vice President Kumar, trustees, student reps, district staff, Dr. Thompson, teachers and staff in the gallery and at home listening to this proceeding. Again, as you mentioned, as you can tell, we're here in force to kind of do one of the most important things, like Michael Gardner said before you, which is a contract to continue the effort that you've seen and have been very much proud of for all these years. I think it's no doubt that the New Haven School District and the teachers that perform that service is by far in a stellar place in the community of education here in the Bay Area as well as statewide. As you see, we're wearing the color purple, which is the color of the union, which actually means value and distinction. I know it also brings, people mentioned, brings up some memories, but that is about history. As educators, you know, without knowing history, you can't progress. And so we hope to say with that in mind, that we must learn from what has happened. We also must understand what needs to happen to go forward. Like mentioned by Mr. Zuber from Logan, one of the biggest thing on the agenda for everyone, including the folks I'm speaking to, is, of course, the living wage, and more importantly, the benefit to take care of us. We know, and we found out very clearly over the summer, we get surprised on how much healthcare costs. The great raise that we got last year, that's 4% raise, half of that was eaten up by an unanticipated raise from healthcare. I say that not to understand that happens, but like we said here too, we need to understand that has to be blended in to any kind of compensation package that we are looking for in our conversations. I think also the class size and the environment in schools is also based on your decision. And actually, class size was started with you to us, although we've been talking for many years, and we appreciate that effort and look forward to resolving that concern of class size reduction. So again, I do want to thank the ongoing conversation from the infamous strike. I think we've come a long way to work together and come to some agreements, come to things to move forward, and also set the standard which New Haven has come to known. But again, with the teachers and other staff involved in education, that is the key to success. I know students that we talk to always tout how much they appreciate what happens in the classroom and how individual our efforts are. So with that in mind, I look forward to the conversation for a contract that we can, like Ms. Duncan said, hopefully reach by the end of this year and not to prolong that difficult and tenuous conversation of not knowing. Thank you.
Go ahead and move on to 10.1. This is a presentation of the 2023-24 first interim budget update by Ms. Hillman. So go ahead and turn it over to you.
Good evening, Superintendent Thompson, President Gonzalez, and trustees. So not only are we required, well, first of all, I'm Annette Heldman, I'm your Chief Business Officer. Not only are we required to submit or to complete and submit a first interim report, this actually gives us the opportunity to fine-tune the projections that we put together when we presented an adopted budget or a proposed budget to you in June. This is the law that tells us what we need to do, by when we need to do it, how to do it, and what we need to do in terms of the first interim reports in terms of the education code. So we go through a budget cycle. I show it here. I usually have this in my presentation just to see, you know, if this was a directional map. That's where we are at this point in the fiscal year. This time every year, we look to an annual report that is issued by the Legislative Analyst Office. And I want to take a moment to actually discuss what that is and who are they. I've not done this before, but I thought it's good timing to present this given a very different outlook that we've heard compared to what is the actual enacted budget as we speak, which is also what I built into our first interim report. So the LAO, they've been around for a long time. They are staffed by 50+ people. They do not report to the governor. They report to the legislature. So they are independent in that way. They are the ears and the eyes of the legislature. So they are there to make sure the governor is doing his job and doing his job in an effective manner. And like I said, they are nonpartisan, and therefore the advice they give to the legislature is neither one side or the other. They provide budget forecast, and part of that is the K-14 public education budget. That budget forecast actually sets the tone for what we might hear or see from the governor when he presents his preliminary budget, which he usually does, the governor, which he usually does in January. So that is what the LAO is. I talked about that because every mid-November of every year, like I said, they put out a fiscal report. And that sort of guides in terms of what we might see by the time we get to January. So on that report, I noted 3 things that I'm putting there. That some of those numbers actually have changed just from when they released this report on November 16 to as of just last week. So they are projecting a deficit coming into the 24-25 fiscal year. They are forecasting a 1-ish COLA. I said 1-ish because they were looking at a range from 0.53% to about 1.6%. Worst case and best case is what they were talking about. While they are talking about things that have been slowing down this year and actually started last year, they are not forecasting a recession at this point. They are not talking about that. So those are the major takeaways from the fiscal outlook that was put out by the LAO in mid-November. They do, like I said, provide some recommendations to the legislature, and these are the two things that I took from that report. They are telling the legislature to hold on to the reserves and not use them for anything. Keep them intact. And they're also suggesting or recommending that for some budget allocations that have been authorized but not yet distributed, like some of that could be the Learning Recovery Grant, for example, that we know we are going to be getting. They're saying to hold on to those, reevaluate, pause, delay, do something, and maybe you can use that for developing the next year budget. So those are their recommendations to the legislature. Now, again, when we develop the budget, even when we do second interim, we don't necessarily use the number put out by LAO. We use the number put out by the state, because those are the numbers that come from Department of Finance, who reports to the governor, not the legislature. But like I said, this plays a role into what we might see in January. So now let's bring it back home in terms of what all of this means in terms of our first interim report. I just want to make mention that this is simply all the required adjustments that we have to do in our budget that you adopted in June. So things have changed. Those numbers are fluid. For example, and I'll show you some of those changes that we had to make adjustments for. A great example that I always use is when we adopt a budget, there are vacancies from July to the end of October, because that's what the first interim covers. And some or none of those vacancies were filled. There's savings there. And those are the adjustments that we then put into our finances. Because we're not going to be spending a full year salary for those vacancies because you didn't fill them up until the month of October, or even after the month of October. So when we put our budgets together, there are certain numbers that we have to use that are given to us by the state. One of those, of course, we always wait for what that COLA is. Now, there's a difference between a statutory COLA and a funded COLA. COLA only means something to us if it's funded. We've seen years where there's a statutory COLA, and that's simply an index, that's simply a calculation, and it's not funded at all. It's zero when it comes down to us. But for this purpose, I'm showing here what the COLAs are as we know them now, based on the state approved budget. So for our first interim report, we haven't changed anything. We're still using the 3.94% for the coming year, even though the LAO report is now forecasting 1-ish%. But again, we're going to wait to see what the governor says on that in January. The rest of those are different dollar amounts that we have to use in terms of other revenue streams that we get from the state. So the previous slide are the things that we are told to use. So those come from the State Department. These are the things that are more closer to us. These are our numbers. Enrollment, I'm pointing an arrow to that year because that's the year we are making adjustments for. That's the year we are in. When we developed the 23-24 budget, we adopted a budget that says we would lose 260 students. So we're seeing preliminary numbers from the census date of October, and we actually, if those numbers pan out to be true, because we're still in the vetting process, we actually lost not as much as 260, but 212. So that's good news. Are we seeing a pattern? Possibly, and that's great news for us, right? So rather than then in terms of the 2 out years, we're recalibrating those projections as well. So the enrollment as we see it now, based on what we thought it would be back in May and June, is actually a better figure. 48 additional ADA, or 48 higher than projected ADA, is good news for us. That's about $500,000. Okay, so that's how we look at these things. Another thing that I wanted to point out to you too is the last line of unduplicated pupil count. As you know, we get additional funding when that number exceeds 55%. This is the first year that we're seeing that number to be higher than 55%. And you will see what that 0.45% would translate into in terms of dollars in the coming slide. So in terms of what changes, what are those adjustments that we had to make from the time that we adopted the budget in June to now for the first interim report? We've listed those there. This is one of the things that we track because we want to know the source of those changes. When your ending balance goes from one number to another number to another number, there's a reason for that, and we keep track of those. We want to document them because I also want to know where they are coming from. So these are those things. The largest number there, if you see about a little more than halfway where it says prior year ending balance adjustments, that is a favorable adjustment to us by the tone of 3.6 million. Now, that 2 million of that comes from what I will explain later, which is called the proxy ADA. It's an ADA relief that was approved by the governor starting in 22-23. We didn't include it in the budget because of all the strings attached to it. Now that 22-23 has closed and we are actually wrapping up that budget, we are now including it in that in the numbers that we are putting together. So overall, the takeaway here is when we adopted the budget in June, our ending balance is such this in unrestricted, and now it's higher by $4.5 million based on those different adjustments that we had to make. And if it's a positive number, it's good for us. It's good for the ending balance. If it's a negative number, it's not good for the ending balance. And that's how you read the last column. Okay, I wanted to kind of go down memory lane a little bit here since LCFF has been around since 2013-14. It was fully implemented in 2018-19. I circled that number because that was at full implementation. For those of you who are around, at the onset of 2013-14, that number that I circled was about $76 million. That was our unrestricted revenue. The state owed us the balance. So when they did LCFF and implemented it on year one, the difference, which is about, I don't know, 29 million, is the money that was owed to us from the state. This is not money they gave to us. This is simply money the state owed to us for all those years where they had deficit funding, deficit funding, zero COLA, in some cases negative COLA. Now let's just fast forward to 2018-19 and it's fully implemented. What I'm trying to show here is after that 26 or $27 million owed to us was fully paid, and it has been in 18-19, everything we get now is in the form of COLA. And you can see the increases from year to year in line A. Now, I want to call your attention to 2021. That year was zero COLA from the state. Okay, 2021 column, but we actually lost $3.25 million in revenue. What does that tell you? Zero COLA from the state, flat funding from the state doesn't mean flat funding to us. It means we lose money. And I've said this before, sometimes we need 2% just to remain standing. And that a lot of that is because of our enrollment decline. So that's just the way that, again, one of the things that we track is this, because I kind of want to see what happens from year to year under the formula that we are in. This is a simplified version of how the LCFF calculator is. So we try to put it in a very simplified format because the one that we actually have to use from Figmat is massive. So we're only looking at 23-24. Look at the column that says concentration. That increase in your unduplicated pupil percentage generated $323,000. And there seems to be an upward trajectory on that. We shall see. The UPP actually is a 3-year rolling average. It's not a year-to-year thing. So based on that, if that continues, we could see to generate more in terms of concentration dollars from LCFF. So once we look at the first interim adjustments and where we are now as of October, that's what covers, that's what's covered by first interim. We look at the multi-year budget. We do this because we are required to do so. We not only have to look at the current year, but we have to look at plus 2 years. Earlier, I said that 2 million of the increase in the ending balance was generated from what I referred to as proxy ADA. Starting in 22-23, because of the not only enrollment decline, we got hit twice under the COVID. Enrollment decline, which had been our reality for years, but also ADA decline. If you all recall, there was kids sometimes can't come to school. Our normal attendance yield in New Haven is about 95. It's never been below 95%, 95.5%. During those 2 years, we actually dropped to about 89%. Now, we're not unique in that. Kids can't come to school, they have to quarantine, and there was no waiver available from the state on that. But what the state did is they gave us 2 types of ADA relief. One of them is saying, okay, take your prior year 3-year average, and that's the number you can use. That gave us some relief. And then they added another one saying, hey, we know that your attendance is really low, but we're going to allow you to use your your highest attendance yield for fiscal year 21-22. And instead of 89% attendance yield, we were legally allowed to use 95% because that was our attendance yield for that year that they allowed us to do, which is for 2019-20. Just for context, about 1% attendance yield to us is about $1 million, just for round numbers. So that's how that helped us. Now, this is obviously not going to continue, especially the second line, because a 3-year rolling average, 2019-20 will drop off that equation at some point in time. So you can see all the way to the last column on the right, how that is tapering off. And that's because we're continuing to decline, and the 19-20 high yield will at some point drop from the equation. But I thought I'd share this because just think of it. If, let's pick a year. For the year that we got 406 ADA, which is the first line, if you multiply that by $10,500, that's the amount that we would have lost if not for this relief that the state gave to us for those years that we would have lost a lot of money. Okay, we talked about multi-year projection. This is obviously a very high-level projection. There's more details into these, and those are found in the book, which is also uploaded as an attachment to your board item. Now, this is for the combined general fund. It includes restricted, what are referred to as restricted. So we can just take a quick look at this, because at the end of the day, what we should be concerned about really is the unrestricted number, right? Because as you can see on the line that says restricted, all of those are slated for certain programs that we have to use them for. In that line, you would find your ESSER leftover money, your Prop 28 money, your Learning Recovery Block Grant one time. So that's what that's for, and they have to be designated for those programs. Title I, II, all the titles are there. So let's talk about the unrestricted. Now we've removed the restricted part. This is, I believe Mr. Snelling referred to this as our ending balance projection of 29 million. So I wanted to show that this is how it moves from one year to another. We are looking at that ending balance of, by the time, if everything pans out to be true, which they won't, when we close the year, this year in 23-24, based on the numbers we're looking at now, we would be looking at 28.017 ending balance in the unrestricted. Now, I'm noting here that these numbers look the way they are. Remember that we haven't settled for 24-25 and beyond. Therefore, we expect those numbers to change when we get to bargaining session and settle with our employee groups. Now, this is using the 3.94% COLA, which is still the state-approved COLA at this point for 24-25. Given the report from the LAO, I wanted to put together a different scenario just for that, just to kind of see what that would look like for us in terms of that ending balance beginning in 24-25. And it's a difference of about 4 million. So this was using the state COLA, the approved state COLA as we know it. If what LAO said would be more or less the same, then we would be looking at $4 million less in terms of ending balance for 24-25. And again, that would change because, like I said, we are not settled with our employee groups at this point. The latest, that 1% we heard about 2 weeks ago. As of last Friday, we're hearing that it's going to be about 1.27%. So 1-ish% I think is close enough. for purpose of this report. So in closing, I wanted to share that these were the projections that we were using, and every number that I present to you, at the end of the day, it really is based on projections and the assumptions that we are using. Are they sound? Are they questionable? Are they defensible? And so none of the numbers mean anything if the assumptions we're using for them don't make sense. In terms of what really we are waiting to hear, moving forward to second interim is what would 24-25 look like, right? What we've seen in the last few years, I've said this in the earlier part of this presentation, statutory COLA means nothing if it's not funded. And there are two things that we need to remember. Number one, is it going to be funded? Number two, at what level? They're not limited to funding just the statutory COLA. We've seen that in the last 2 years. In 21-22, the statutory COLA was 1.7, but we got 5.7% COLA because they added what the state called catch-up COLA. They added an additional 1.7. So two things, is it going to be funded, and at what level are they going to fund it? 24-25 is also a big election year. Statutory COLA may be 1%, but are they really going to have the appetite to fund just 1%? So there are things we have to look out on that. They might add again. In 22-23, we had something called the base augmentation. That was the 13-point-something COLA that we saw. So who knows? They might call it something else. They might come up with another cute name and add to the 1%. But we have yet to see, and you will see the changes in the second interim report, and that would incorporate the numbers that we will hear from the governor's initial proposals. So what's next? Tonight, we're presenting the first interim report. We're waiting to hear what the proposals are from the governor for the coming year. In March, we will present to you incorporating those changes. And by then we would have certified our CalPAS enrollment numbers by then. So we would have more refined numbers. And that ends my presentation. Thank you.
Selman, is there any fellow board members with questions or comments? And Vice President, come on.
Thank you. Great presentation as always. I appreciated learning about the LAO, so thanks for including that piece. I had a question on the combined projections, the 3-year, this is on page 16 of your presentation. So for the REUs, I see that we are projecting a decrease. Are we expecting to tap into our reserves?
Which one is that? I'm sorry.
The REU. The reserve for economic uncertainties.
Oh, the REU is a function of our total expenses. So we calculate that 3% based on the all outgo. So that only means that expenses are actually dropping. And that's especially when we have one-time monies. When those one-time monies have run out, your budget will shrink a little bit. And so your 3% will also shrink a little bit because it's based on that. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, moving on to 10.2 presentation of our strategic plan. Superintendent Thompson.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go over there. I can't see anybody, so you're okay with it. I'm gonna go around here. I can't see the board as well, so. I think when we get back in our boardroom, it'll be a little easier. Were you laughing at yeah, that's it. You want to end the board meeting early, just get me up here. I'll clear it up. Anyway, I'm pretty excited to share with you where we are in the process of creating goals and initiatives for our next strategic plan. We're moving along. So just a quick review, and this is just to keep us grounded where we need to be, that there are really 4 things that a good strategic plan does. First one is it focuses the goals around our community needs. So keep that in mind when we look at the data that we had. It creates the foundation for all of our documents, all of our work. For example, when the board approves our goals, they will be our LCAP, which is the document that drives all of our budget and everything else, will be built around those goals. Site SPSA is built around those goals. Our evaluation of our administrators built around those goals. The entire organization is aligned around them. So they're pretty important. And this is the part that's sometimes challenging. And we saw this a little bit in the vetting process when we got feedback is they need to be specific enough to provide clear direction of where we're heading, but they need to be flexible enough to allow for meeting the needs of the different sites and departments that we have. And sometimes you'll hear with the higher level goals, well, they're not very specific. Well, that's for a reason, because what a teaching and learning goal might mean for the personnel department is going to be very different than what it means for maybe Searles Elementary School. And a teaching and learning goal at Searles Elementary School, how that is put into play at Logan is going to be very different still. But everybody should be moving in the same direction. So the goal is to keep them specific enough to provide direction, but flexible enough to meet the needs of our different schools and schools, programs, and departments. And then in number 4, this is really important too, that this is how you hold us accountable. So you create the goals, you approve the goals, and then you hold me and I hold the staff accountable for moving them forward. So that's what, if the goals work well and the initiatives, that's what they do. So just a quick review of where we're at. At the end of last year, we started compiling a lot of data, and we used that data to draft the goals. And that data came from students, parents, staff members of all administrators, teachers, classified staff members, all throughout the spring of last year. In June, we created draft goals, and then we did some vetting of those goals in July with our leadership team and some representatives of our labor partners. You saw them in first form in August when you had a chance to provide feedback on the draft goals at that point in time, which you did. Thank you. And then we officially kicked off what we call the vetting season. We had a State of the District event in September, and that launched the process where we shared those with our community. So we had all of our sites had those goals, and we're charged with sharing them with their different site-based groups. We shared them with all of our educational partner groups. We had 2 community forums, one on either side of town, and we had the survey link that was used to gather that information went out. Thousands of people in different ways, in so many different ways. So we took that data back and made further revisions, and here we are tonight. So we're staff, and I am coming to you tonight to recommend some goals for approval. We'll get your feedback tonight and make any changes that come from that. And the goal is to bring them to you in January for approval, at which point we'll start working pretty diligently to build our next LCAP and get everything in place for next year around those goals. And then we'll kick it off officially in July 1, 2024. So that's where we're at. So let's take a little deeper dive. Just for review, you've seen this before, but there are a couple additions here. When we created our draft goals and then continued to revise them, we used data from a lot of different sources. If you click onto these, each of these individual links and some of them have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bits of data that you can look at. Most recently, we had the Washington Hospital presentation, which presented some really compelling data about what our community and our students need. And then the last bit of data was the data we collected from the vetting process that we began in early September and ended the second week in November. All right, so even though this survey went out to, and we had meetings all over the place, with going out to thousands of different people at different times, we only had 125 people respond to the survey. And in our different meetings, we had the opportunity for people to fill out individual cards, and we had 63 cards filled out. So only 188 responses after all of that work. In general, what that means in my experience in the past is that if people are generally happy with the way things are going, they tend to not come out and provide a lot of feedback. When they are not happy, they come out. For example, the first iteration that we did of the strategic plan that ended in June, when we created that, we had hundreds and hundreds of people coming out to different things and really thousands of responses to the survey that we put out at that time. So it tells me that we're probably in a pretty good place as far as our community sees the district, but it wasn't that helpful in terms of getting more feedback on these goals. So keep that in mind when I show you the goal and the different responses to each of the goals. So moving forward, if I had to pick some themes and some data of the responses we did get, again, remember, it's not a very representative sample. 81% of the respondents felt that the goals that we shared with them and the action initiative were representative of our needs, which was good. And in general, the comments that we didn't get a whole lot of comments, but when they did, they were very specific. I would like the special ed students in the second grade at Alvarado Elementary School to have more support. Okay, that's not something that fits within our goal too, in terms of supporting our students, but it's not the kind of comment that is really helpful for creating the broader overarching goals, if that makes sense. And the majority of the comments that we received, and again, there weren't very many, but the majority that we received were very specific on things like that. There were some themes that came along from the parent community. There was a need. I think in general, parents were happy with how we're communicating with them, but we communicate in a lot of different ways, and they're looking for some more alignment between the different vehicles that we use. There were definitely the comments from particularly our certificated staff were a lot of them related around class sizes, and there's still a need for a desire to have continuing mental health support. So those were some of the themes. Again, remember, that's not a very representative sample, but for the people that did respond, those are the themes that came through, and those actually fit within the goals, and we'll take a look at that. Again, some comments about being vague and how do you hold people accountable when they're vague. So I thought that was worth going through and just kind of hitting that again one more time. So this is what I'd call and I didn't come up with this. This is a very strategic strategy that's used when you're creating these types of plans, and it's called tight loose or loose tight or tight loose tight kind of and then we've used that. That's what our first strategic plan was designed that way, and that's what this plan is designed around as well. For example, the goals that you will ultimately approve, we're really tight in adhering to those goals. Everything we do is driven by those goals. Again, LCAP, SPSAs, everything, the entire organization moves around those. That's not optional. We're really tight on that. Where it gets loose is, again, what I mentioned before, where our sites have the operational flexibility to take that goal and those action initiatives and to build for example, at a school, their SPSAs around those goals, but the specifics of how they're going to go about achieving them are going to be different at each site. They all have to move in the same direction, but again, the needs at Searles are going to be different than the needs at IBCMS, which are going to be different than the needs at Logan, and they need to all move in the same direction, but have flexibility to create their own plans around that. Our job is to hold them accountable. My job at the site level and the department level to make sure that everybody's moving forward in the same direction. Now we come back to being tight again. At the end of the year, and every year, our first board meeting in May, you get an end of the year report from us. And that's where my job is to show you what we've done to move the entire organization forward around those goals in a quantitative way, in a qualitative way, and both in terms of what we got done, and perhaps even more importantly, what we didn't get done. And we're really tight on that. So that's when people here talk about they're vague, how do you hold people accountable? It's intentionally that way in terms of the overarching goals, because again, we have to provide some flexibility for the sites. So this formula worked really well in our first strategic planning cycle, and the goals and action initiatives you're seeing coming to you now are designed this way as well. So our first one, the general buckets of learning of areas for the goals are very similar to what the community wanted last time. There's definitely in all of the data that we had, there was definitely strong interest in keeping a focus on teaching and learning in our community. Not surprisingly, that's what we're here for. And of the 125 people that responded, 86% of the people felt that the goal as it was written and shared with them met the needs of their teaching and learning needs. So, and again, some of the comments that were the people that didn't feel that way were very specific about wanting certain things. I would like after school tutoring at Kitayama Elementary School, that kind of thing. So I'm not going to read through all of these things because we don't need to be here all night, and you've seen these before. But if I had to summarize kind of where we were in August and where we are now, the things that we've tweaked and added a little bit and tightened up a little bit on, there's definitely the theme here is we want more. We would like expanded options. We would like more options before and after school and within the school day. We'd like to see more different things. And there was an interest in both CTE, career technical education, and also in STEM related things, expanding those options. So that you'll see reflected in there, which is different than our teaching and learning goal last time. So last time was a little more fundamental in terms of some of the needs. This time around, there's an interest in having more, I would say, if I had to characterize goal 1 in terms of preparing our kids for life after Logan and CCHS and DSIS. Goal 2, again, this is about supporting our kids. You heard tonight some of the speakers talk about the need to continue to support our kids in different ways. I think we're better off than we were a couple of years ago, but there's still a strong need to support our kids in terms of a variety of things, mental health support, and so on. We'll get to that in a minute. Fewer people felt that the goal that was written reflected their needs, but still almost 77% of the people who responded felt that the goal, as it was written initially, met the needs of the community. If I had to summarize the difference between this go around and last go around, remember the first time we developed this strategic plan was pre-pandemic, and there was a need then. I think that there is a strong need to still support kids in terms of not only their mental health needs, but we learned through Washington Hospital that our kids are really at risk in Union City from a lot of bad health outcomes based on the data that they generated. So we included physical health as one of the needs that we need to start thinking about when we're educating our kids. There's definitely a need in terms of the support we're providing to do it in a way that makes them feel like our students belong and that they're welcomed in our schools and our classes. And I think that was something that came out as well. So that's a little bit different than last time. Goal 3, our staff support goal. Again, about 76% of the people who responded felt like this was reflective of their what we need. And interestingly enough, a lot of the people who responded to this goal were members of our community, and that felt that some of this is reflected there, less so than the staff members themselves. So if I had to summarize the differences between where we were and where we are, I think there's a need to provide more opportunities for growth within our system, for training and providing opportunities within our system for staff. There's certainly a need to continue supporting them and making our staff members feel valued, and also to continue to try to honor and recognize and celebrate. And we've done it. We made a lot of big moves in our first strategic planning cycle that way. There's a continued need for that and a desire to have that move forward. And then also trying to attract and retain teachers that really have the same values that we do as an organization. And that's something that Derek's department will be working on coming up in personnel. Families, again, this was probably one where the needs were most dramatically different than the first go around and where we are now. And if I had to summarize the differences, it would be I think the one continuing thing is to continue to make efforts to make our schools and our classrooms as welcoming as they can be, where people feel like they belong and are honored in our schools. And that is definitely something that came out. And then the big one would be, instead of you don't communicate with us well, it's you can almost communicate with us too well now. Can you make it easier for us to access the way, for example, we have a lot of different school vehicles for communicating with parents and families. Can we align them to make it easier? Instead of having 3 apps, can we have 1 app? So trying to align some of those resources. And then I think the other piece would be providing stronger ties for our families to some of our community partners and some of the engagement opportunities within the school. So it's making things better as opposed to building them from the ground up, which is where we were, I felt like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So that's encouraging. Goal 5, whoops, sorry. Oh shoot, I can't get back. Yes. So in this case, we had about the respondents, about 85% of the people felt like the goal fit the community needs. This one, I would say the summary would be better, whoops, darn it. If I had to summarize it, better food, cleaner facilities, and keeping a focus on school safety moving forward. Also with an eye on sustainability. For example, food waste, trying to be more efficient with some of our systems, And so that would be, these are the areas that came out in both the data that we collected in last spring and through the vetting process this fall. So those are the 5 goals and a summary of where they're at. So this is your time to give me thoughts, suggestions, comments on where we want to go next, with an eye in mind that hopefully we can bring something to you in January for approval. Share.
Yeah, thanks a lot. These look really, really great. I am going to talk a little bit about goal 5. I think the first action step that you have, which is develop sustainable practices for food, for systems for food services, while seeking ways to improve food service. I like the goal. I think it's very, very specific. I think we could probably, because in terms of sustainability, there's a lot of things that we can do as a district to be more sustainable. And this one action step seems to focus specifically on food. So if we could maybe generalize that a little bit more to talk about sustainability practices, not just in food systems, but in operations and transportation and all of these other things. So maybe just to generalize it a little bit more so we have more flexibility to do other things. Food, yes, and a bunch of other things that we could be more sustainable on.
That's a great suggestion. Definitely like that. Okay, other thoughts, comments, feedback?
Question.
Yes.
So goal 3, the survey results show that almost 13% of the people who were surveyed thought that this does not reflect the needs of our community, and I understand it's a very small percentage of the overall. But do you have any insight as to why they felt it does not reflect?
Again, I think in general, the responses, we didn't get a lot. Some people just put no and not comment.
Okay.
The comments we did receive were very specific and primarily around the area of special education. So we had a small but pretty vocal group, and both in terms, I think a lot of them showed up at our community forum that we had over at Alvarado, and they also responded to the survey with very specific comments around special ed. That would be, I would say, the majority of the people who didn't feel like it met their needs were commenting in that area. And again, it wasn't a very big group, but it was a very clear need, but very, very specific.
Any other questions? Feedback? Steve Hernandez.
My apologies. Never mind.
Okay. Well, we will thank you. We will make the necessary revisions and talk again in January.
And we're gonna go ahead and move on to 11.1. This is the MHDA's bargain proposal for the 2024-25 school year. Mr. McNamara, you got to present.
You open a public hearing.
Open a public hearing. So a public hearing will be held to allow members of the public the opportunity to comment on the New Haven Teachers Association initiative proposal or sunshine proposal to begin bargaining for the 2024-25 school year.
And we have one speaker to speak at the public hearing, Mr. Snelling.
Right, thanks for allowing me to speak to you again. To give you some background, how does NHGA come up with this proposal? We look at CTA guidance, California Teacher Association guidance. We look at any grievances we may have to have filed with the school district. We conduct a comprehensive unit member survey. We had well over 60% of our unit members respond. A huge percentage of our unit members giving us their input on what their priorities are in regards to a host of issues, healthcare, questions like how do you feel heard by your site administrator? How well do you feel you're being heard by district administration? So we are in touch with what our unit members think and feel about the current working conditions and important elements of the contract. When we come to you, we we had the really acrimonious strike. I was a member of that bargaining team. And we've moved on to a better place. I think both sides have kind of learned from that experience. We have half a dozen people in here who were integral parts of both sides of that acrimony. And I think we're at a place where there's some open communication. I believe for the most part, our unit members feel seen and heard. Things don't always turn out the way we like. But I think having open communication through monthly consult with the superintendent. Now we have a special education advisory committee where we're meeting with the director of special ed. Things are in a much better tack. Some outcomes from the last bargaining, we came to you and asked for some improvements to bereavement. And the district agreed that if a woman suffers an ectopic pregnancy or a miscarriage, then that should be able to have some bereavement time for that. And that was a great accommodation, seemed really reasonable. The district agreed that, thank you. One last statement, in terms of grievances, that the timeline should be extended because the district realized that if there's a problem with the unit member, that they would like to give the unit member an opportunity to resolve that grievance rather than just shut it. Okay, so when we start making proposals in January and beyond, trust that we come to the district trying to reach an agreement before this contract expires on June 30th. And we're going to come with reasonable expectations. And we look forward to having an amenable negotiation process this time. Thank you.
More speakers on this topic? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and close the public hearing. All right, now this is 12.1 items from the board and the superintendent. Without hearing any objection, I'm gonna go start on the right, work my way down to the left. So student trustee Samin, go ahead and begin.
Okay, so the CSBA conference was such a great experience. Thank you to Gina and everyone else who made it possible. And I've started the student advisory committee at James Logan, with our first meeting being on December 12th. This program will be open to all students. I urge anyone who is interested in joining the Alameda County Tobacco Control Program and making a public comment against tobacco usage at the city council meeting on December 12th at 7 p.m. I will be there. Dead Week is next week at James Logan, with finals following right after, and then winter break. So I'm sure we're all very excited for that.
Currently, we recently gave out the awards for Student of the Month, and so the gifts will be given out on Thursday for that. And then recently we just had tryouts for the basketball team, and today was the first practice, and I'd say it went very well. And then like the thing was that the conference went very well, so it's a very enjoyable experience. So that's it.
Thank you. Trustee Hernandez.
I had a great time at the conference as well. Thank you to everyone that also made that possible. It was a great learning experience, and yeah, I look forward to using my new information to help better support the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is my second CSB conference, and I'm so glad to learn a lot from so many different workshops. And SELPA, I had a SELPA meeting today, and it was we had a couple of presentations, and I'm looking forward to doing more on that. And our so that's it. Thank you.
Yes. So I also attended my CSBA. It was my 8th CSBA. I'll talk about one specific panel that was interesting. There was a panel on climate education and sustainability systems. I think it's really part of the reason why I made my comment about generalizing the goal a little bit is because I think there's a lot of things that we can systemically do to line up our systems. And I think it was Cabrillo Unified School District. They went through this process, which was, I think it was called the Green Ribbon Certification from I believe from the state. While there's no necessarily funding attached to that, having the metrics and things like that allows you to get in line for different types of grants. It's if we have the metrics. So that's something that we'll, as we start to roll out our action plans, that might be something that we can refer to. And I learned that at CSBA. Also at CSBA, they talked about the federal advocacy trip that CSBA and AXA puts together. I went last year. And I think it was actually really, really good. In fact, it put us in touch with the cybersecurity task force that I attended a couple back in October. We also learned a little bit about direct Medicaid and Medicaid billing and things like that. I'd like to continue having our district and our board represented there. Many of the folks that I talked to who went to Coast brought 2 members from their board. And I'd like to, when it's time for consensus, I will seek consensus from the board to send 2 additional 2 members to Coast. It's in April. As far as other things, I was contacted by Supervisor Lisa Marquez's office from her district director. Apparently she has been speaking to somebody in her district whose student goes to Logan. This person had mentioned that there is a lot of occurrences of the use of the N-word on the campus. And one of the things that I'd like to do is to seek guidance and advice from the D3A on how best to address this. I think it's probably best to get guidance from an advisory group that actually has the life experience and the expertise to be able to give some good direction on that. So during consensus, I would ask that we engage D3A to talk about this issue and see what we can do to move it forward, because I know it's very, very complex. Other than that, I'll yield the rest of my time. So that concludes my report.
Vice President Kumar.
Thank you. First off, today marks the 1-year anniversary of me serving on the board. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone for the support. It's been great. I also attended the annual education conference. It was great. I attended workshops on SEL, the use of AI in education, effective governance, and also learning about the current fiscal issues in California. I did attend a talk by our California State Treasurer, Fiona Ma, and there were some initiatives that they have started that I really wanted to share because they wanted us to spread the word. One is CalKids. The state helps with access to higher education by contributing to their college savings account. So that's something that is really helpful. Second one was the Dream for All program. This is for first-time home buyers whose parents do not own a home. And then there's gogreenfinancing.com, which basically helps in creating a greener California. And then this one hits home because I am a community college professor and I have a student who lives in his car, and it breaks my heart when I see him on Zoom in his little car trying to take classes. It breaks my heart, but they have an initiative where they are providing students with housing, students at community colleges with housing on campus, which I think is amazing, and it will benefit a lot of our students as they move on to community colleges too. Other than that, I also learned the benefits of the Coast to Coast conference for advocacy, and I will also be requesting that I accompany Trustee Nishihira if we have the funds for 2 board members to go. That's all from me.
And I also went to the conference this year compared to last year or the year before that. There was the sessions I went to, they weren't teacher bashing. There's some negative comments before, but this year was positive. And with the growing push for
with CTA members, who are educators going into the, doing the work of becoming a trustee. Went to one session also with the reunion, all those, all my colleagues who are educators and also board members, so that was good to go to a reunion with them and see them and encourage each other to move forward. One thing I do want to say about me becoming president is first of all, I'm very honored to take this role. And I'm sincere when I say, Lance, I got some big shoes to fill. You did a wonderful job. You exude confidence. I think this year compared to last year in my 18 years of teaching, I had the worst class ever. And I just had a baby, so I wasn't getting any sleep. So this year, now that I am president, I can tell my wife, like, hey, I need to take this more serious. Responsibilities. You can change these diapers, and I got to do some work here. I got homework to do, so I won't let you down, and just looking forward to this year. And it's gonna be long. Superintendent.
Well, I want to hear what your wife says when you tell her she has to get that.
Might need a new president.
Yeah. You heard everyone mention the CSBA conference, and I also felt like it was a really good one this year. The sessions that I attended that I think we're going to explore more, they had 2 sessions on the use of AI in the classroom and how powerful a tool it can be. Santa Cruz City Schools and Salcon, 2 different things, talked about how it really, I think it could revolutionize education as we know it in a positive way. So will be as part of our strategic plan, and that probably that first goal. I think we are to stay on the cutting edge of things, looking at how we can support our teachers to use that as a tool is going to be pretty critical in the next few years. So I'm looking forward to that. Speaking of teaching and learning, this December is a long month. We're finally the dead week and finals, but it's when we push up against Christmas, it can be really long. So it's a busy time with finals, with all the celebrations and the different events that we have. But everybody out there, just be patient with our teachers and our students, because it is a long month. Anyway, and I just want to wish everybody happy holidays, because we won't be together in a school board setting with others. That's it.
Oh, can I also say happy birthday?
Oh, yeah.
Rafael.
I'd like to, could I share some, I'd like to share something. All right, thanks. So first I'd like to thank the teacher who was here, who was wearing the keffiyeh and to support the Palestine. I really appreciate her. And she spoke also. And since my last comment last board meeting, not much has changed. As I mentioned that Islamophobia is on the rise, and my high schooler has first-hand experience on Monday, November 6th, being called terrorist in her class, and she was in a state of shock. Anti-Semitism and Islamophobia has no place in our schools. Every child has the right to practice the faith and carry it with pride. No Jewish or Christian or Muslim or Hindu or Sikh or Buddhist or whatever the faith they choose or not to choose to practice, they should be honored. The name of our school starts with New Haven, and we will make sure our schools are a haven for all our students. And also, since last board meeting until now, 2 young boys were stabbed on our West Coast, and 3 young Muslim boys were shot on the East Coast. So these things are on the rise. So we need to be talking to our children and making sure these things doesn't happen in us area. Thank you.
There you go, Trustee. We're gonna go ahead and move on with our next presentation from Ms. Stevens. This is 12.2 board general monthly resolutions. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think Mr. Ross is going to take over from Stevens there.
I might be the mathematical opposite to Ms. Stevens. So good evening, President Gonzalez, members of the board, Superintendent Thompson. I am very excited to be speaking to you tonight with kind of our new take on the monthly the board resolution calendar. And as you know, the board passes resolutions throughout the course of the year that is really intended to lift up, celebrate, and acknowledge the contributions and challenges of traditionally marginalized populations in our community. And these resolutions that are passed are accompanied by some supplemental instructional materials that are cultivated and cultivated, what's the word I want? Curated, sorry. I guess they could also cultivate, curated by members of our teaching staff that make it a lot easier for our teachers to incorporate these lessons and help these resolutions come alive in our classrooms. Over the last few months in the Communication Advocacy Committee, we've been really working to formalize and refine the resolution calendar and process. And we've been doing some investigating with how other districts are doing it. And one district, I don't know if they're a neighbor, but you could get there within a half an hour or so, maybe not, is Brentwood Union. And their superintendent, who happens to be a former New Haven employee, has actually been doing this work and really looking at and refining how they are going to implement these celebrations or these resolutions for a while. And kind of the model that they put together, I think, really checks a lot of the boxes that we were looking to check. And the superintendent in Brentwood has kind of shared this model with locals, other school districts, so that we can kind of take what they've done and kind of build it and kind of tailor it and make it our own. And so I'm very excited to kind of share our kind of draft revised resolution calendar. And so this draws some from Brentwood, but there is a lot of stuff that we already do that's in here. If you look at this, you'll notice that there are 4 resolutions, 4 celebrations that are new to New Haven. We haven't had these before. The first one is in August, and that's New Haven Celebrates Identity and Diversity. And then moving to December, one I'm really excited about, that's the Celebrations of Light. Followed right after that in January by Disability Awareness Month. And then in the spring, in April, we have Arab American Heritage Month. And the one thing I really appreciate by this proposed calendar is that we now have resolutions every month of the school year. And so that is something that we were lacking previously. And there's a lot of honoring folks in October. We had the Latinx Heritage Month that kind of splits September into October, coupled with Filipino American History and LGBTQIA+ month. So we've got a lot going on, but we had some lulls in kind of our traditional calendar, and those lulls are now filled. And so what I'm going to do in the next couple of slides is just kind of go over the new ones, go over the new proposed resolutions and celebrations. And we'll start with celebrating identity and diversity. And I really can't think of a better way to kind of launch every school year is to have our students really take a look at themselves, kind of the purpose and the idea of this. Let me stop. The text on the blue box is drawn from Brentwood samples. And these are kind of lessons and targets that they have built into their process. They do theirs a little differently than ours. I really appreciate what Brentwood does and did. I think they did a great job. I think our instructional supplementary materials are much more robust. We have a number of them. Teachers have a lot more choice, but these are, and for the next 4 slides, you'll see these are the things that Brentwood focused on. And I think it's a really good starting point for us, at least, so we can, as we kind of build our repertoire as it relates to this. But the focus of August is really to help students to identify, to kind of develop a self-portrait, to identify what's important to them, and then to share that and make connections with folks and other students in their classrooms and in their community to see that although we are all different, we are all unique, but boy, do we have a lot of similarities, and those similarities cross a lot of different places, culture, religion, background. And so I really like how it seems like a very positive way to start off a school year. This one I'm really excited about. And, you know, in this time of the year, it's super dark, you know, very early. And, you know, and celebrating during this darkest time of year it can really symbolize, you know, the triumph of light. And as we're getting close to the winter solstice, and right after that, days are going to start to get a little bit longer. And many cultures across the globe celebrate during these times. And what we want to do is to provide teachers with resources that they can share with their student for our students to see the similarities that we share kind of across the globe and really kind of work on inclusion. Interestingly, today, as I was going through New Haven social media, is that we have 3 elementary schools, Hillview Crest, Alvarado, and Searles, who over the next couple of weeks are doing, frankly, this. They're having parent nights, and students are coming, and each classroom is going to have a different sort of cultural celebration for this time of the year, and folks can kind of learn about those. And it's a great example of how this sort of resolution, this sort of celebration can really be implemented. And I think we're going to have some good starting material for our supplementary instructional materials. So that's December. In January, we're going to focus on Disability Awareness Month. And this is an opportunity for our staff to really work with students to promote awareness, understanding, and acceptance of disabilities, and through resources that will initially be kind of curated, possibly cultivated by the Special Services Department, that students are going to learn more about disabilities in a way that's going to promote inclusivity, empower individuals, showcase achievements, and reduce any possible stigma. And so again, these are starting places that we work on, kind of the spectrum of disabilities that we really want our kids to understand and to really break down barriers. And this seems like a really good time to do that. The last of the added resolution celebrations is Arab American Heritage Month. And the resources that we would help to provide to teachers would really allow for, you know, the appreciation and recognition of these rich and diverse cultures, traditions and histories of Arab Americans. And our goal, I think, one of the focuses would be to really break down any possible stereotypes or misconceptions. And that the good thing about this is, because we have such a robust Muslim American Heritage Month kind of bank of resources, I think that will really help to become a foundation for this and a good starting point as we over time start to build that back up. So I'm going to go back to kind of the draft revised calendar. The other resolutions, the other celebrations we have done before, you've seen before, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Yeah, can I, a couple months ago, we brought this up, we talked about Muslims, about taking that off here. Why is it on here, Eric?
Well, we folded that into the Arab American Heritage Month. And as I said, I think the good substantial amount of resources that we have is really going to be the focal point and a key point of that Arab American Heritage Month. And similarly with Sikhism, would be folded into Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month.
Is that what we agreed on during that meeting?
I don't know that there was an agreement. I think the initial proposal was just not approved.
And I can comment on that. It was there were comments made to that effect, and then the Communication Advocacy Committee over the last couple of meetings kind of fine-tuned that. And I believe that the communication apps committee, things that we did meet the request of the board at that time. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on that, but I think we accommodated the request that did come up.
Well, I just think at this time, we need to double down and protect that community there, you know, by showcasing them and highlighting them. So I know trustee Rufai, yeah, I hand up. I'm sorry.
Thanks so much. So like, I'm a Pakistani, I'm not an Arab.
Yeah.
And I celebrate Ramadan. And the books that, the resource that you have placed in this, amazing, impressive. I'm really, thanks, like really grateful for like the amazing book that you've shared on that. But Arab is like, it's like, okay, in the whole of our school district, if they are 1%, the rest of the Muslims are about like, you know, way more than that. Like there are much fewer Arabs than way more Muslims.
Exactly. Okay, student trustee,
Yes, so I'm also Muslim, but I'm from Central Asia, Afghanistan. So a recommendation I do have is either changing American Heritage Month to Muslim Heritage Month, or SWANA, which is South Asian, North African, and Arab, to make it more generalized. Because Arab culture isn't exactly Islamic culture, as there are Arabs who share other faiths.
Great, thank you.
I have a few comments. I think this is terrific work. Thank you for working so hard and taking all of the feedback from last time. We are a very diverse community, and I think this new format is inclusive of everyone in NHUSD. So you have thought about everyone, and I really commend you for that. I love that August starts off the school year with celebrating identity and diversity. I think this speaks to our theme of honoring dignity and belonging. So I just wanted to say thank you.
thank you.
I can answer just that to take some of these other considerations in, for example, Muslim transcending both Arab and Asian American cultures. That's something that we can, when it comes to the resolution, when we develop that and the resources, we can incorporate that. It doesn't have to be in one or the other, it can be in both. So we can take a look at that. And this is just, if the board agrees to this format, then we'll begin the work of doing the actual building of the resolutions and the support materials. And that's where we can get into some of these specifics, I think, in more detail. But we're asking the board to approve this and this structure first, and then we can move forward.
Thanks so much. Thanks.
Thank you. So you're asking for a motion?
No, it'll come up later in the action items.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll leave it on, 3.1 report from the Communication and Advocacy Committee.
So yes, we did have a meeting on the 16th. Staff shared a draft of the new monthly resolutions, and staff also shared some information on the digital marketing efforts that they've been making on social media. Our next meeting is December 14th at 4 p.m.
Thank you. Next is 13.2. This is the report from the Finance, Technology, and Facilities Committee. We're not meeting till January when we hear the governor's proposal. Next is 13.3. This is a report from the Policy Review Committee. We already shared our results from the last meeting. We don't meet until February. And is there any other committee reports? Okay, Nishihara.
So yesterday we had the city district joint quarterly joint meeting. We shared the district shared our intent to have a school bond measure in 2024, at least directionally. The city also mentioned that they will also be seeking a revenue measure. The specific type of revenue measure is not quite known at this time. It could be a parcel tax, it could be a sales tax or utility tax. They're still talking about it, but generally some type of revenue measure will be on the ballot. Dr. Thompson provided with us the school district strategic plan update. We also announced our new board member, Trustee Hernandez. We learned that there's a very just a few small things we have to do to complete the land exchange, after about 10 years. And with the joint use agreement, so that's just about done. They spent quite a bit of time sharing with us their station district update. They recently had an open house last Saturday to talk about all of the developments and all of the work that they're doing to create Quarry Lakes Parkway, as well as to develop the station district. And then kind of the meatiest part of our conversation was around the Union City Transit Supplemental School Service update. We heard some numbers regarding the bus service that our funding that we received from the state allowed to happen. So far, we have the service running, but it's kind of like in soft launch mode right now, which means we haven't really the board hasn't really, or the district hasn't really done a lot of marketing behind it. They wanted to make sure that the operations were going and that to catch all the bugs and the wrinkles in the service. And they did find that there are some challenges with regard to the Clipper card provisioning process. And so what I asked, the joint committee asked, or actually during the conversation, I asked the city council member to potentially have the city transit staff create a set of talking points and or feedback points to send to Clipper and MTC, because right now the provisioning process is there are a lot of challenges with it for agencies wanting to do this. So if it's the pleasure of the board, I would like to ask the City Council of Union City to task their staff to develop those set of talking points that we can send off to MTC and to the Clipper company. It's no work from our staff standpoint, but I would like our board to be aligned to be able to request that from the City Council. I'll ask in consensus. Okay, other than that, that concludes my report from the city, and you were there too, if there's anything that I missed. Okay. All right.
Is there any other committees?
Yes. So today we had the SELPA meeting where the presentation on infant program was done. It was and also Special Olympics was also discussed. And on Thursday, that's day after tomorrow, we'll have our Mission ROP meeting. So that's fun. Thank you.
Okay, close. All right, we're gonna go to the action items. This is 14.1. The consideration of Unit 1 recommended for denial readmission. May I have a motion and a second to deny readmission for student 1?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Roll call.
Hernandez.
Here.
Perfect.
Here. Aye.
Excuse me. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Sorry.
That's okay.
All right. Kumar.
Aye.
Nishio.
Aye.
That's-
Can you clarify the aye votes? Because there were some that said here.
Okay.
There were two here.
We had two, yes, trustee Hernandez, that was an aye. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And
Aye.
Fake was an aye also. All right, moving on to 14.3, approval. This is 42, sorry. May I have a motion and second to approve readmission of student 2?
Aye. I'm sorry. So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Roll call.
Hernandez.
Aye.
Perfect.
Aye.
Nishihira.
Aye.
Kumar.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye. Right, moving on to 14.3, may I have a motion and a second? This is for the approval of the 2023-24 first interim report and multi-year budget projections for the 2024, 25, 2025, 26. May I have a motion in a second?
Still move.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Roll call.
Sami.
Aye.
Perez. Aye. Hernandez.
Aye.
Buffet.
Aye.
Nishihiro.
Aye.
Kumar.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye. Right, moving on to 14.4. I have a motion and a second to approve the board general monthly resolutions for 2023-24.
So move.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Trustee Buffet, are you okay with the way that it is now?
I would prefer the words to be like more inclusive
Mhm.
than just like Arabs,
Mhm.
because
That's fine. Do you have a proposal? Or we could amend the motion with, with more inclusive language. or
yes,
something
I
like
would.
that.
Yeah, I would like it to be more inclusive language and the proposal. Thank you.
So we'd like to amend the motion.
Is that for the particular month? Was it April?
Month of April.
Yeah.
Yes.
I too would also like to, something Muslim, Islamic kind of. Also, featured in that month, not, Arab though.
If I may ask, what was the suggestion that you had?
So I had Swana, which was South Asian and North Africans as well as Arabs. Yeah, but I do also prefer.
But then again, they are Caucasian Muslims,
Right.
they are European Muslims,
Exactly.
and they're not included in it.
Which is why I would prefer American or Muslim American month.
Yeah.
And that's what we, just as a clarification, that's what we got away from because we were trying to not focus on religion and to focus on heritage and culture. For the very reason you're talking about, because they transcend.
But then we voted also, it was 3-2 on that one.
Yeah, but I
We
would
support it.
yeah, okay. I think what we can do,
Should we table it for another month?
I guess we table it for another month. We'll send it back to communication advocacy. Because we, again, the will of the board at that point was to steer away from religion and to
Right.
focus on culture and heritage.
So tabling it, what does that achieve in terms of what's gonna change, given that we don't really have a way of getting?
We
away
could, I guess an alternative would be to approve it with the idea that we will, we have some time to amend. Come back with a recommendation for April. That's something different than what it says
Right,
now.
could we still approve what's?
Yeah,
Everything but April.
yeah, we
Yeah.
could do that with the idea, with the caveat that we will still continue to work on what April looks like.
Sounds good.
But I disagreed, during that meeting, that was exactly why it was a 3-2, we didn't want to go away from that, we wanted to keep that in there. And adhere to, talking about.
So
Muslims, so.
I believe it was a 2-2, and then I abstained, but since I didn't know that, and which was the other policy of not abstaining. So I don't believe.
3-2.
It was
3-2.
It was a 2,
Three.
I did
No,
not.
Schwinn Mallory, myself,
Oh, I
and
see.
Rafael, yeah,
Three of us.
so even if you abstained, it's still.
I got it.
Yeah, we still have to.
The
so-
majority.
But given that this is a new slate and a new, is this still up for voting now, since it's a new, it's different from what we voted on?
But that was the direction we gave to them, though. And they didn't follow through.
We kicked it back to that would have been at our communication advocacy, then we did not as a committee do what, I don't. My personal feeling was that there wasn't clear direction on what to do.
Mhm.
So we went back at communication advocacy and did what we thought was what the board wanted as a committee, but clearly that wasn't the case. So again, I think what we can do is approve the slate with the amendment that with the exception of April, where we'll continue to work on April and bring April back as a separate thing. And that's fine. I mean, it's not really fun to do that. That would allow us to move forward with Disability Awareness Month in January.
That's right.
Roll call, please.
You want to make a clear motion? Somebody
Yeah,
want to make it?
Before we do that, you want to?
Somebody help me out with it.
I move that we approve the board general monthly resolutions with the exception of April to be determined at to be finalized at a later date.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, roll call.
Samin.
Aye.
Perez.
Aye.
Hernandez.
Aye.
Buffet.
Aye.
Ishihara.
Aye.
Kumar.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye. So we're now on 14.5. May I have a motion and second to the new course at James Logan High beginning fall 2024 Latinx issues through film and media. Can I have a motion and a second
So moved.
Second.
discussion? Okay, roll call please.
Samin.
Aye.
Perez.
Aye.
Hernandez.
Aye.
Buffet.
Aye.
Ishihara.
Aye.
Kumar.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Okay, 14.6. May I have a motion and a second for the new course at James Logan beginning fall 2024. This is AP African American Studies.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion. And could I just get a hands up? All those in favor, can you raise your hand? All opposed? Raise your hand. Okay. Right, may I have a motion in a second, for the purchase of Tools Forever Comprehensive Identity and Access Management Cloud Solutions for 2023, 24, 24, 25.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Okay, so since this is a purchase, we're gonna need a roll call vote.
Samin.
Aye.
Perez.
Aye.
Hernandez.
Aye.
Buffet.
Aye.
Ishihara.
Aye.
Kumar.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye. Right, are there any items of which trustees would like to be pulled for separate vote? This is consent agenda items. May I have a motion? Seeing none, may I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 15.1 through 15.6. 26, excuse me.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion. All those in favor, you can raise your hand. Okay. All opposed, raise your hand. Okay, passed. All right. So we're gonna go all the way down to 15.27. Which it doesn't exist, so we're gonna go to 17. We're gonna go all the way to 17. Okay, so this is assessment of governance procedure and protocol. Is there anybody comments there?
Well done, President Gonzalez. Couple things is what's helpful is sometimes motions can get a little bit muddied. So as I always like for motions to actually have a clear verb and like a real clear action so that we know exactly what we're moving. So a couple of those, like we might ask to like clarify the motion just so that staff knows exactly what is being moved. Other than that, no, that was it.
Yeah, also, I talked to Superintendent Thompson about having a tangible copy of my script as opposed to this waiting on, sometimes you need some updates or something that you're talking. I think that'll be helpful, and next time I have my voice. That's good.
And probably a microphone too.
Yeah, my mic, exactly, microphone. If I had a microphone, I'd be saved. All right, so moving on to 18.1, this is board
trustee request, I believe, trustee Nishihara.
Mhm.
That's something you want to.
Yeah, I've got two. This is not necessarily for staff. This is more getting consensus across the board. The first consensus item is for I would like for our board to request city council to task their transit team with formulating talking points to be shared with MTC and Clipper regarding the challenging provision and implementation items as feedback. All we really need is just general agreement and alignment. Are there any objections?
Okay, seeing head nods, yeah.
Looks like we have consensus.
Consensus on that.
And the second consensus was seeking board consensus to send trustee Kumar and myself to Coast in April 2024. Are there any objections? Yeah.
Can we hear just a little bit? Where is that exactly?
It is in Washington, DC. What ends up happening is CSBA will put together a kind of a primer on federal education issues to kind of prepare us for the, for meetings with the legislators. Then the delegates have a meeting with the congressperson and ours is Congressman Swalwell. Some of the output there is advocating for things like special education funding as well as cybersecurity infrastructure, and it allows us to have a greater impact on our legislators.
Are there any other requests?
I have one request and one follow-up. Can I get more information about caseloads of school psychologists and speech therapists? Thank you. Do you need any more information on that?
No, we can provide you a little analysis of what we have on SLPs and school science.
Great, thank you. And then I was just wanting to follow up on the debate program.
If you're okay, I'll turn that over to Ms. Stevens. She can give you the latest on where we're at with the.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you. We decided to tap into the expertise of our local director and team. And they actually have a middle school curriculum that's been vetted, that's been implemented in the past and previous years. And working with them and our middle school principals at this time, we met as recent as last week to look to see if there's an opportunity for us to offer it during the school day for our students at both middle schools, either as a part of a wheel or an independent year-long class. And those options are not available based on course requests. Then we're going to look at offering it after school as a club. So we have a couple of advisors identified. So we're kind of excited about those planning meetings. So we anticipate having something more detailed to share out around February when it's pre-reg time for our students.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you. All right, the time is 8:37. I'd like to close this meeting in honor of Dr. Thompson's birthday. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Well, it's up for you. We'll have a fair time.